Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. In this episode, we will be hearing from a full-time hairstylist who started competing in 2014 and has since done 11 competitions with 1 overall win at a regional show and 6 national shows. She went pro in 2019 at North Americans after a long season of national shows where she placed top 5 4 times before earning her pro card. She's married to her high school sweetheart and got her competitive spirit from her 9 siblings and athletic background. Welcome to the show, Sharon Halpin. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. That was I feel like more than what I know about myself. So great.
That's hilarious. I'm so glad. I know you've tuned into a few episodes, so I got to ask you, what is something you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
Okay. Yes. The big question. I've been thinking about this because I'm trying to go back because when you're in the moment, you're in the moment. I'm like, oh, what do I think about? But
yes,
I do remember a lot of on my national shows, just kind of, I'm standing in line, you're getting ready, you're almost there. And I'm just going over and over in my head. The physical work is done. My mental work is there. I'm showed up and the last thing I can do is just work on the energy around me. So I remember just sitting and thinking, Sandy will look at me. Sandy will see me. Sandy will notice me. I will be in first call out. So just manifesting what I want to happen. And it worked for a lot of the shows. Obviously, I got top 5 at all those national shows that you mentioned. And that's kind of just something that I've tried to work on. If I can just get a good, clean energy around myself, then I can present that on stage and the judges will see it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love how you say, I'm going to be seen, I'm going to be noticed, and you recognize that and it's worked for you. And of course, you just made your pro debut this month, April 2021. That is awesome. And you started all the way back in 2014. So did you ever think you would end up here now doing your pro debut?
Oh, probably not. 2014 seems so long ago because it was, but I just remember when I had a small dream, I heard about these bikini competitions and I'm like, I'm going to try that. I want to see what that's about. And I did it and I didn't want to do another one after that. I was done. So I kind of, I refound the sport 2 years later and fell in love with it again. But yeah, back then, no, I feel like I stepped on stage. They told me the things that I didn't have to win. And it was kind of hard. And then, looking back now, it's oh, that journey is kind of where it, those hard things that you have to learn or that feedback that you get is kind of gets you where you need to be anyway. So I failed a lot and wanted to quit a lot. So back then, no, I definitely didn't think I'd be a pro. So it took a long time to believe in myself and to figure out what I needed to be a pro mentally, physically. And, it was a long journey, like you talked about. And I'd love to talk about it too, because it was long. And I am one of those people that just went on. And I feel like I'm rambling now. So,
oh no, I love the rambles. I say this on every show.
I just keep going. I'm I need to circle back.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. It's all good. I appreciate you sharing that. I actually want to hear more about your journey because you just said some things that I personally wasn't fully aware of in the research that I did preparing for this episode. So you had started in 2014, you were given feedback hey, these are all the reasons why you can't win. And you just decided I'm done. And then 2 years later, you came back. What brought you back?
Yeah. So 2014, did my first show. I think I got maybe top 10, but it was a regional show, not a lot of people. And it was hard. The diet was hard. I had no life. My husband was so upset with me all the time because I was so hungry, because it was so new. And it was a very strict bro diet, egg whites, mustard, chicken, the end, you know? So it
Yep.
was, so I kind of stepped back from that. I actually found CrossFit and fell in love with lifting heavy. I loved Olympic weightlifting. I love the competitiveness of CrossFit. I put on a lot of muscle because you just lift real heavy all the time. And my coach at that gym, at the CrossFit gym, actually started coaching his girlfriend for a bikini competition. And I was like, oh, okay, they're doing it. And they took a macro approach, if it fits your macros at the time. And I had kind of started getting into macros as well with him, just learning how to diet just as an athlete, to look better, to perform better. And was like, okay, well, if you could do a bikini competition doing it that way, like maybe I want to try it again, because it was so fun. It was awesome to get on stage, but the diet was so hard. I like the foods that I like to eat, and I want to be a normal human being, you know, not just live off of egg whites my whole life. So I did a show with him. So I started, you know, he started coaching me. He's a CrossFit coach, you know, not a huge bodybuilder. He kind of trained himself for a few bodybuilding shows. He was learning, I was learning, and we ended up going into my second show in 2016. And that's when I took first place in novice, first place in open, and then I won the overall. So I went from total failure, hate this sport, to I was won this whole thing. This is crazy. So yeah.
I love that, because you saw a new way to approach the sport and you thought, well, if it can be enjoyable like that and I can still have the foods that I like and my body likes, then why shouldn't I go after this? And I think it's really
Yeah.
cool that you got into CrossFit, actually, because I can see that you train hard, you train heavy, and I had been curious if that's how you had always been, but it sounds like it just evolved with your journey as an athlete.
Yeah, it definitely evolved. I think after my first competition, like, you know, you're so body focused and so food focused. That's like, after that, I just needed something else to focus on. And that's where training comes into play with your off season. Like having that next goal of just wanting to get stronger. Like I don't know if there's anything more empowering for a woman to like feel strong, like physically. Cause like all our lives, you know, we're told like we're weak, we are the weaker one, like you can't lift this, oh, you let me help you with that. But it's like, no, like I want to lift this, I am strong, like look how strong, and I'm going to keep getting stronger because it's exciting. And not a lot of people are willing to put in the work to be that strong, you know, and there's so much reward that comes with it. And then so it's like, if you can have that in your off season. So it's like I was able to develop that first, I think, after my first show, and then find where the nutrition aspect can really like take my body to that next level. So yeah.
Oh, I want to hear more about that, but can you break down like what a normal training day looks like for you, maybe as opposed to what you've seen in the industry? Or because you did mention, you know, a lot of women are not guided down that path. So what does your training style look like?
I mean, I think it's definitely evolved as a competitor within the sport, because, you know, I did start with CrossFit. I started lifting very heavy. I squat almost 255 pounds, like, which is a lot for my frame. I feel like, you know, like,
Yeah,
so I've
that's
always just had
impressive.
like, yeah, like super, like, I did even a little stint of powerlifting, you know, where I focused on deadlifting a lot and squatting and benching. And I worked up to a 300-pound deadlift. And, you know, so that probably is a little bit different than a lot of how I
Hmm.
think some people view bikini competitors. A lot of them view them as just like high rep range, just low weights and just getting it in and toning. But I think for most people, like you have to have that baseline, or I think you should, you know, I think it does benefit to have that baseline of lifting really heavy to build that foundation of muscle. And then after that, like I think now, like my training in my off season has kind of evolved a little bit, because we're just trying to grow certain parts of my body, whereas heavy compound lifts can build everything, you know? So for me, a lot of my feedback has been to like grow my glutes, get them bigger, get them rounder, come in tighter so that they pop, you know? So we've kind of gone down a little bit on the heavy compound movements and focus on the higher rep range. But I think we're okay to do that because I have that foundation of lifting super heavy. So, you know, my typical day, you know, kind of, it always depends on which phase of training that I'm in. If we're trying to like really build, if we're trying to just fine tune, um, or just get a good pump, you know, where you're in prep right now, you know, maintenance mode. So that's kind of a generic, I think, typical training for me, if that
Yes.
answers the question.
It does. It really does. I appreciate you sharing that with us because it provides insight into sometimes you just have to be willing to identify where you're at and what's necessary, actually all the time in this sport. And you recognize that you've got that foundation of muscle, you've got that strength. And with both of those things, you're now really able to fine tune your physique even more, which I think is
totally, which is what the pro level is, because it's like, once you're a pro, I kind of feel like it's like, okay, you've made it, you have the foundation, you have the physique, because once you go pro, everyone looks good. So, it does come down to those nitty gritty little details, and everyone's going to be different according to like what their body needs, or their previous foundation of what they've built their physique off of. So
right. And you did mention, you don't necessarily have to do this whole overall growth, but I think just as it's common for women to be told, oh, you're not strong, let me get this, let me help you with that. I think it's also common for them to focus more on their size and shape than on the actual execution of growth and making changes to their physique. And I know you celebrate when your body has more energy to work with. And
oh my gosh, 100%.
I love that you do that. I'm like, oh, I love these posts. So how have you approached your reverse diets from show to show that has supported you in longevity to compete all these years? Or how do you shift your mindset so you can embrace that look for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest and like vulnerable on this podcast, like I have never, I think with most of my preps, they've been super long, like in 2016 and 2018 and 2019, all of those preps were probably over 8 months long, which is a long time to be in prep. And mentally, physically, I get so exhausted. And 16, sorry, I guess ending, however my prep ends is kind of how I reverse, which is not the best approach. And I honestly have never really stuck to a really strict reverse. I think just because the fatigue, and it's like, I'm tired, I want my life back. Like, there is more to life than prep sometimes when you like finally step out of it. And so I do, currently with my prep right now as a pro, finding my look, getting feedback, my biggest goal right now is actually having a really strong reverse. Like, I want to make sure that I am reversing healthily and correctly to make the most of it. Because I think in my past, like, obviously the show ends, I go eat whatever, I keep eating whatever because I just don't give a damn because I'm tired, but it does have longevity. And so which is like, and that's on the food end, I guess, of things. When it comes to like training, I do love the energy that comes from that food and jumping into the gym and training hard. So I think reversing within the gym has always been a really easy thing for me because it's motivating, it's energizing, it's something else, but like the food size is something that I definitely want to work on. And, as a pro, I want to be a pro, and pros reverse well. They keep a fairly good physique year round, or just healthy, so that they can do this long term. So you were probably more asking about the training side of reversing, but
that's actually exactly
the nutrition
is
like probably 90% of it. So
that is true. It really is. And that's something I personally specialize in helping girls with, is making the most of their post-show experience, their reverse diets, their nutrition. Like, that relationship with food is so important because it can contribute to your longevity. In fact, it really does. And I think everyone kind of finds what works best for them. And then sometimes you got to try something new to find something better. And you had that experience when you switched to an if it fits your macros approach. And I was curious if your food choices change as you get closer to your show, or if they change at all.
I mean, I think as I've evolved as an athlete, they have changed to be just more simple, because I do find that it's just better mentally to just not think about, oh, how can I fit in all these little sauces and spices and flavors? Like, as you do come to like your peak week, if your body can just regulate and have very simple whole foods instead of like all the sugar-free shit that's out there that I'm guilty of eating during prep, but each week, I think it is just good to like almost, it's like I obviously follow my macros, but when I get this close to a show, every day kind of looks the same. And I realize I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of nice to not have to think about it. And then once the show is here, then I can like enjoy myself. And I think it's taken me a long time to just learn that food will be there at the end. Food is just food, and you can have it then. I could even have it now, and to like give yourself that like opportunity to know that you're choosing to not eat it now, or that you can have it later, like really does just like create that better relationship with it and gives you a power over it. And so the food doesn't have a power over you as well. So that's kind of
That's so
something
true. Yeah. And if you
yeah.
give food that power, it actually really drains you throughout preps and in your improvement season. And I personally find, coming towards the end of a prep, it's always like focus on getting consistent with what's going in your body. So you learn, right? And then there's something about coming
Yes.
out of the show that's exciting because you're like, okay, well, now I can add in other foods and experiment with things and see how my body responds. So I think if we take that perspective of, curiosity and learning and acceptance, it can really change how we experience, a prep or an improvement season.
Yeah. And I think going into it, like setting yourself up for success is kind of what I've learned the hard way over the years. Like, okay, after this show, this is what I plan. Like, have a plan for after, not just a plan to get on stage and to win or lose. Having a goal after the show is something that's going to be really important to set yourself up for. Because I've had preps where I've ended and I've been so emotionally like a failure. Like, I am a failure, where that kind of sets me up for, I don't care. I don't want to reverse. Like, this is too hard. I don't know why I do this. Like, I was so close. I didn't get it. So having that goal after your goal is like going to make such a difference, which I think is almost why my mindset is so much better this prep. Because going into this prep after taking a year and a half off after getting my pro card, my whole goal is like, I want to get on stage. I know I'm a new pro. I'm starting at the bottom of the barrel, but I'm going to work my way up for 1 or 2, 3 shows, get some feedback, and then reverse, because I want to reverse. I want to put my body in an optimal position to grow with the feedback that the judges gave me. So having that goal after your goal is so important. Speaking from someone with experience who hasn't had that goal, who has failed, who hasn't reversed properly, who has had bad rebounds and done it time after time, like obviously we're almost to my reverse because I'm stepping on stage this weekend at the Wasatch Warrior show. So I still don't know if we're going to reverse after this. I'm kind of just taking it one show at a time, but all I'm looking at is like, okay, well, we're going to get my feedback. How is my reverse going to go? And I'm going to kill it. Like that's my big thing right now, which has been really awesome and totally different perspective. So it's going great so far.
That's cool. I 100% agree. It's all about having those goals consistently time after time, especially because majority of competitors are very goal oriented. And so if we suddenly don't have a goal, and it could be something physical, it could be something mental, emotional, it could be something in life. But it's great to have that long-term focus. And I like how you're not going into your prep just thinking about the next show, but you're also thinking, well, what's happening after? How am I preparing myself to continue to improve? And I definitely want to talk to you about your feedback from your pro debut. But before we get into that, I had a few more questions about your personal use of If It Fits Your Macros. And if you've noticed any mistakes maybe other athletes make when using or tracking macros as a competitor, on prep or off prep or both, or any mistakes you've made.
I mean, yes. Sometimes I think with macros, it's easy to just like put things in here or there and be like, oh, it's only a few calories. It's only this. Like, it's not going to add up. Like, it does add up. I think it can add up digestively, if it is a lot of like small sugar-free things that actually do have calories. And just if you're able to just bring it all into, and even though if it fits your macros, like, sure, can you fit a piece of pizza in? Great. Will that like fuel you to be the most efficient in your training and how you're looking and how you're digesting? Like, no. So like, I think it's taken me a long time even to like, okay, I'm going to fit this in, I'm going to fit that in. But also I've learned like, okay, I feel better when I eat this, when I eat simple digestive carbs right before I train, or something more satiating at night, or even a bigger breakfast with just like whole food. So coming back to whole foods and not just trying to fit in every little thing possible, I think kind of just the more simple that you can make it, the less crazier you're going to be, because macros can get very overwhelming. It can get very confusing, and you kind of just like trying to like, you're like at the end of the night just trying to fit in anything to like make it work for the day. And you're
Right.
like, oh, I wish I just would have eaten my same thing that I had yesterday because it was so easy, you know? So I think if I had to like give someone advice, like just like think simple, think foods that you like, things that you enjoy, that you're okay eating day in and day out over and over again. But also like macros for me are for, if it fits your macro style, is for when life happens. Like when you have a date going out to dinner, or you have a party or a wedding or something that you need to go to, and you can't just bring your own food. Like life happens. And so that's the part that I love with flexible dieting, is like life is flexible, life happens, and you can't always just be on a restrictive meal plan sometimes. I mean, some people can, and that's great. But for me, it's like I like to feel normal and I like to be with people, and food is a big part of gathering. And kind of going on a rant here now, but
No, it's
yeah, that
great. Yeah,
I think
food is
you asked
more
me
than
one thing and then
just
I just start
fuel.
trailing to another. But yeah, being able to just have food fit around your life, I think is just more, and it's just empowering if I can just look at food and be like, oh well, I can work this into it and not feel guilty later because it fits, you know. Whereas I'm gonna have a regular day, I'm gonna be home, I'm gonna hit the gym, I'll be at work, at the end, like I can eat the same thing because I plan ahead for it. But if something does come out of the norm, like being able and being okay to just eat that and make it fit, like is the part of flexible dieting that I love. And then as far as like mistakes, just be honest, you know, with yourself. You always have, because it's, you're the only one looking at like the grams on the scale. So make sure you're putting in the right numbers, make sure you're not looking the spoons, because those things add up and they can like be the smallest thing that might be holding you back. So just being like 100% honest in what you're actually adding and tracking is going to just set you up for success in the long run.
That's awesome. I really appreciate your insight, because I think while it can be a lot sometimes and a big focus on numbers and tracking everything, it can also provide that room, like you said, for life and experiencing it, food outside of just fuel, right? Because I know when I
Totally.
followed a meal plan, or when I am following a meal plan, it's very much like, okay, I'm eating this for very specific reasons. But the same is true with the macro approach. You're just creating your own reasons. And you had talked about how you took a longer improvement season, and you've taken long preps and you've taken long time periods off. So part of that comes with more experience of life. You've said, you've kind of realized in those moments, okay, there's more to prep or more to life than prep. So what does life
Yeah.
look like for you in an improvement season versus prep?
I mean, for me, it's just because when I am in prep, you kind of get that tunnel vision. You get that little in that headspace where you're just kind of home a lot, because it's hard to be in social settings because you're tired, you're hungry, and just don't want to be around food or people sometimes, because you're just so there, all the energy is going into that because it is a lifestyle. When you are in prep, like you are in prep, it is a journey, you know. And to stray from that journey can be stressful and hard, and if you are a competitor, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But for me, like off season is like being able to go out with friends and have drinks and feel okay and be normal, and to be normal in their eyes. Like, hey, I'm more than just a competitor. I'm more than someone that just diets and trains and gets freaky vascular and skinny when I do prep, you know. Like, I am a friend, I am a wife, I am a sister, like I am a hairstylist. Like I I love to work out. I love to play volleyball. I love to go hiking and be outside and just be with people. And so I think outside of like, in an off season, even last year, I was telling my husband, I was just like, why? You know, even though it was during COVID and we were shut down, I'm like, this summer is like the best summer ever. It feels like such a summer. He's like, oh, well, I think it's because you're eating and it's your off season. It's the first summer in 2 years that you've had where you haven't been on prep. And I'm like, oh, you're so right. Like prep can feel so overwhelming and like, oh, this is life. Like getting that goal is life. But you're not going to be in prep forever. You're not going to be a competitor forever. So just make sure you're taking the time to like build your relationships and enjoying your life in your off seasons, and being that person and that human that you need to be for others, you know, because prep is a very selfish sport. It's very inside, you're very in your head, you're very like it's very selfish. And in my mind, you know, that's kind of how I describe it. So, and when I'm in off season, it's like I just want to not be selfish. I want to give my energy and give my fuel to feed into things that will be for the rest of my life, because this is such a small part of my life.
It can
Yeah.
absolutely seem like selfish at times, but I appreciate how you share, you see yourself as more than just a competitor. You're doing so much more. You show up for other people, and it's important to celebrate those aspects of your life as well. So, something you had just mentioned is your husband and how he gave you some feedback regarding why this might be the best summer you've had. And he's your high school sweetheart. So how has he seen
He
your
is.
progression from the sports you played to bodybuilding, and just has this had an impact on your relationship?
I mean, yeah, he's literally been there since the beginning. He's seen me since I was 16 years old, basically, which is wild. I'm now 31. So
That's
we've had a
amazing.
lot of years together, and he's been there the whole time. I mean, even when I did my very first show, he was just so supportive. He's just like, this is awesome. I think he's so goal driven. Like every New Year's, I hate it, but it's great. He's always like, okay, what's on your list? Like, what are your resolutions? And I'm like, I don't want to make a resolution, because if I don't do it, then I'm gonna feel worse for even making it in the first place. So he is like all about goals, setting goals. He is like a man of lists. He loves that aspect. So like and prep for me is like the one thing in my life that like makes me, it's a very goal oriented like aspect of myself that I love. Because hitting goals for me can be kind of hard, even though I prep, which is one of the hardest things. But he is just, he's very supportive, and he's been there after every show, after every meltdown, after he's been there every time I'm hungry, or with every win. And I just remember after getting my pro card, like, talking to people, and then just going to find him somewhere, and I just finally locked eyes with him. And I feel like it didn't even like set in that I got my pro card until like I was in his arms, and we both just started sobbing, because it's like, oh, we experienced this together. Like he's been through my journey the whole time. He's seen everything, and he's the one person that I confide in. He knows all my insecurities. He knows everything that I'm feeling, because I'm not an open book on Instagram. I'm fairly quiet, and sometimes feel like I don't have a lot to share, or don't want to overshare, or I'm just not someone who, I'm not the biggest open book. But with my husband, like, I am. So he knows everything, and it's just, I think, so important to have that in your life. Like, I can't imagine being a competitor and not having some type of support system, because it is such a lonely sport. It can be, I think. So having that spouse, or that someone who does just like, hey, you can do it. And also he's always there to remind me, you don't have to do this. Like, you can step away anytime. And it's like, oh, thank you for grounding me and reminding me that this is like a privilege. Competing is a privilege. It's something that I choose. And if it is becoming something that is like super negative or impacting your life, like, wake up and step away, because there is like your marriage or your relationships or your work or whatever may be more important than that. And that's also okay. And I think sometimes it's like bigger of people to step away from things because it is impacting them. But not to say that that's always the case for everyone, but if it is, like, it's okay. The stage will always be there. Like, you always, like, I always hear on your podcast, which is also like such a great reminder. But yeah.
I love that too. I think it is an important reminder that, okay, let's step back and recognize that we're choosing this every single day that we show up. It's because we chose to, and it's going to get hard. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be times where other people maybe don't understand, or they have to come in and really support us. And you might feel bad for having them support you in that way, but it's like, it's a choice. And I think it's important to recognize all the beauty in that choice and how empowering it can be. And, it can, like you said, it can be lonely, but I think it's helpful when you have a support system, as you mentioned, and also other people in the sport you connect with. Like, this podcast has made such a big difference in my life. And I've heard from so many listeners that even just having it to listen to has brought them a deeper connection to the industry and to the sport. And I don't feel as alone. And I wanted to hear.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, oh, there are people like around me.
Yes. Like me. Oh, there's other women who are dealing with
the only crazy person who thinks that.
Maybe that's what this show is really like, just an excuse for all of us to be crazy.
Yes.
See, it's totally normal.
On our level of crazy.
It's fine. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Anyway, it's it's interesting because you make friends at shows or you make friends through Instagram and social media, but I'm going to be vulnerable and share. Sometimes it's hard to maintain those connections, you know? It's like
Yeah.
you want to stay friends with people from your show, or you hang out with them all day, or you meet them backstage and you go home and maybe you connect a few more weeks on Instagram or social media, and then okay, you kind of lose track. I think sometimes it's easy to, especially if
Yeah.
the connection wasn't deep. So I was hoping you could share how you've personally fostered the connections you've made on show day or just friends through the sport in general.
Yeah. So I love meeting people backstage. I'm not the one to go up and start talking, but if you come talk to me, like, yes, I see you, we are friends now. Like, I'm not a good initiator, but I will take you in and like you will be my person from there on out. I I love like girls, it's so I backtracking, I guess.
Mhm.
Girls are hard and like girls are competitive and it's like you're all there to compete against each other in a sense. And but it's like I think girls can empower people. And it's like I love sitting backstage and be like, oh, let me fix your hair because I just want someone to do that for me. Maybe it's the hairstylist in me, just like, but I love when girls reach out or they just want to talk to you. What's your name? Where are you from? Like, awesome. Like we can connect you, or you are literally doing the same thing that I'm doing. And it is hard to connect with people and stay in touch. I mean, there's people I've met backstage, and even this last show, this gal, she was in front of me in line, and we kept talking. I was like, I think I know you. I think I know you. And I after prejudging, I went on my Instagram and went to another story, and I realized that we had taken a picture at Junior USA's in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And oh, sorry, not Junior, it's just USA's in Vegas. And I'm like, look, we were at a show together, we have pictures together, but we never connected, even though like we reconnected again at a different show on the same level. I'm just like, so I'm like, I think you and I are like meant to be friends or something. But I'm like, obviously, it's hard to like also get outside your head and get out and be social as a competitor,
Yes.
you know? So I think it is important to like connect, because one of my best friends, like she is a bikini competitor. I actually coached her through her first show, and she's, you know, outgrown me from there, which is awesome. And she's
Wow.
just my one person that I can call and connect with. And hey, we're going through the same thing. Hey, I need you to hype me up. Hey, tell me this, or I'm feeling this. And I think it's just so important to have that buddy system of someone who just gets it, because not a lot of people will get it unless they've been through it themselves. And you know, your coach can only do so much, and maybe only your husband can do so much, because my husband does not compete. He does not go to the gym. He's very normal. And so I think it's good to have those relationships within the sport to help you like have an outlet or a safe place just to share or be open and talk about, because you never want to be in a space where you're just like in a hard spot alone. And maintaining those relationships, I think, is really important. I'm obviously not great at keeping them, but another relationship that I made was at one of my national shows was Britt Hamilton, and that's actually how I found my current coach,
She's
Adam
awesome.
Atkinson. Yes, you interviewed her as well. She's so great. So I met her and I'm just like, wow, you look phenomenal. Like I want to know who your coach is. And that's kind of how I found mine, and going into her. And, you know, me and her kind of keep in touch through DMs, and it's hard.
Yeah.
You're both just kind of in your own little worlds, and it's like, I want to be friends with people. I want to have more relationships. I'm not great at it, and I wish I was. And then maybe it's just something that I probably should just work on and initiate more if it is something that I want. But, you know, I'm not perfect. And, but I'm just like, just want to put myself out there like, hey, come be my friend, because I want to be your friend too.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. That's so
Like
funny.
backstage, I'm like, yes, come talk to me. Like, let's get on stage, let's do this together. Let's have a dance party. Let's have fun, because we're here and we can't change anything else. We can't change the outcome. So we might as well just enjoy each other, because we're all in the same spot. So
Exactly. And sometimes like those types of connections are the best, even if they're momentary or they don't last, or you know, they don't feel as strong. It still means a lot in that moment
totally
on the
does. It
stage,
totally
right?
does. Yeah. Yes.
And they do sometimes come back and you see them again, and it creates that like we have to, meet each other. There's some friends I have who I've never met in person, and it's all online, and yet we just connect so well
I love
because
that. I
we
love
have
that.
this, right?
Yes, totally. It's awesome to, I mean, and that's what humanity is. You just find something to connect with, and that's like what life is about.
Yeah,
in a
it
way.
really is. And we're meant to connect, and we're meant to have these like beautiful relationships. And the fact that we can go to a show and even just see a familiar face, I think can make a big difference, because it's like, okay, we're
Totally.
here, we're still doing this. You're okay still. It's good to see that people are still in it.
Yes. And I think as a pro now that I'm thinking about this, like I have like my friend always likes to call it imposter syndrome is kind of what it is. But like I feel like it's like I've followed all these like bikini competitors forever. I've seen them online. I'm like fangirling. And now like I'm one of them. And I'm like, okay, like you can be their friend. You can talk to them. Like you belong here. You earned your spot. Like you are a pro as well. Like it's been hard to kind of adjust to that, to be like, okay, like I am one of you. I do belong on this stage with you. I earned my spot. I can't, like you're not above me. No one's above anybody. And just to remember that everyone has value. And so try to remember to reach out to people that you see who maybe don't feel like they have value in that moment or feel small. Like trying to build each other up is just going to help the sport in general, I think, just be better.
Yes, absolutely. I think every time I have these interviews too, I'm like, okay, it's reminding me that this is important. We need to shine light on women, in this sport, and the amazing competitors that guide this. And I love that you brought up your connection with your teammate Brittany as well. I think that's really special. And I actually
Yeah.
wanted to ask you just about the experience you had, with your pro debut. What was that like for you? What was the feedback you got? Let's go over that.
Yes, it was so recent. So that's good. I can remember everything. It was so exciting. Like I think I've just taking so much time off and just going into this show with no expectations. Like I almost want to say it's like it was a less competitive type of thing for me, because nationals was so competitive. It was so important for me to get my pro card. It was so like all consuming, whereas this was like, okay, I've reached my goal and now I have like, I'm at the bottom of the barrel and I've got to make a name for myself. I've got to just show up, got to get on stage, don't trip. Do your best and like show off like the year and a half worth of muscle and physique changes that I've made and just have fun. Like that's kind of that was my expectation going into this show. Like get the jitters out, have fun, like be backstage with the pros that you have followed, because like you are one of them, you've earned your spot. Like it was nerve-wracking. Like that stage was so trippy. There was like tape and
Really?
cords all over it and I didn't trip. I was so proud of myself.
Heck yeah.
And yeah, I think I had so much fun. And obviously like we always want to do better. But I didn't have expectations. I think I ended up getting third call outs, that normal 16th place. So I was like, well, I didn't get last. So I feel really great about that. And just having like being able to appreciate the small moments of that was just like, okay, this is awesome. Like this, I don't know, just taking out the expectations and putting the fun back into competing was something that I really experienced at my pro debut. And I just like, want to give that to everyone. And just like as a reminder, like, hey, this matters, but it doesn't. That was like something that someone said to me before I got my pro card that settled in, like competing, this matters to you, but it doesn't, So it's like the minute you can just let that go and leave expectations at the door and just show up and say, here I am, here's my hard work. I'm proud of it. And that's all that matters,
Wow.
Obviously winning is awesome. We all want to win. We all want to get there, but it doesn't matter, It's like, just be proud of yourself and in that moment and have fun.
That's amazing advice right there. I love that. And it's a great reminder, because we see it as competitors, like it's the end all be all, everything matters. All we see on Instagram all day is other competitors.
Yes.
We think everyone is like in this sport with us, but when you take a step back and you walk through a Trader Joe's, most people don't know who Miss Bikini Olympia is. They just don't,
Yeah, totally.
But we're
Yeah.
in it. We care. And it's good to care. It's good that
Totally.
we are, I don't know, like
Yes.
certain.
Yes. It's obviously it's obviously what drives us to like reach these amazing, phenomenal goals that maybe like 10% of or less of the population does,
Yes,
So
exactly.
it does matter to us, but in the big scheme of things, it doesn't. And yeah, so I showed up and I had fun and killed my routine. And obviously there's changes that we can make. And my feedback was to come in just a little bit tighter with fuller glutes and maybe just a little bit fuller shoulders as well. So it's kind of been my typical feedback that I've gotten throughout the years is just bigger glutes. I just have a very slow, genetically growing booty, and we are working on it. It has improved, but obviously like things take time, and the sport is like about the journey. It takes time. Bodybuilding is not like body, immediately getting there. It's a building phase, and building
Right.
takes a long time. So I'm here, and it's like, okay, well, I'm happy that I have something to work on, because when you're the best of the best and you don't have anything to work on, it's like, where do you go from there? So you always will have something to improve. Even I'm sure Miss Bikini Olympia, Janet, like, has something to improve, So, and that's what keeps us going. So if we were the best of the best and we didn't have anything to work on, that shouldn't slow you down. It should just reignite your fire to be like, okay, something else, we'll get there, we'll fix it, and we'll make it better, And even if we get that one thing, we may get something else that we get feedback on, but that's also just the name of the sport and the exciting part about it. It's just, you can constantly evolve in this sport and constantly grow from within, physically, all of the things. And that's what I love about it. It's just constant growth all the time.
Me too. I actually just made a post the other day, like how interesting bodybuilding is as a sport, because it seems to like halt the celebration of progress made in an effort to continue progressing, right? In an effort to celebrate what comes when we strive for more. And bodybuilding, it's never over. Like, of course, the top competitors, if anyone has targets on their back, it's them, right? Like, just when you're at the top, no one's looking necessarily at the people shooting the bow and arrow, they're looking at the target. Is it going to get hit? And that's motivating. I think it's motivating no matter where you're at in your journey. You want to get to the top. And then when you get there, you want to either stay there, or you want to help other people come up with you, and you want to set a new standard. And I think that's a really cool part of this sport, is we're always striving for more. And I know you're heading into a show in and correct me if I'm wrong, but a show in your hometown, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm so excited. I haven't competed at home since 2018. So 3 years ago. I'm really excited for this show.
Wow. Okay, wait, what show is this?
So this is the Wasatch Warrior in Salt Lake City, Utah.
That's beautiful. I love Utah. That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that you got feedback that was similar to previous feedback, but it's crazy because I've looked at your various stage shots over the years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she took 20 months off. She's made significant changes and turning pro. What inspired you to take that time off? And then how are you feeling now after getting similar feedback?
Yeah. So, taking time off was super awesome. It was like I was in this marathon, and then I finally hit the finish line and I was first, and it's like, okay, now I'm just going to lay here and rest for a while. Because it was a marathon. I did I think 4 or 5 national shows that year till I got my pro card. So I needed to rest. I needed to grow. I needed to like metabolically like get better and just like get into a better homeostasis and like get grounded and just kind of regroup and kind of rebuild that goal again. Because it's like, okay, I hit my goal. I got my pro card. What's next? I don't know. Miss Olympia seems so far away. Like, it seems like such a far-fetched goal and to chase. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to take a few steps back. I'm going to grow, which I did. We built up my metabolism. I've never felt better. And I think I am such an advocate for long off seasons. Like, the stage will always be there, like people say, but off season is where you grow mentally and physically. And if you can just get your body into like a better spot before you start prepping, like that prep is going to be 10 times better. Your body's going to respond better. You're going to look better. You're going to see more progress, So I'm such an advocate for taking long off seasons. It's, to me, so important. Some people who do just like stay in prep year long, I'm just like applauding them, because I'm like, I can't do that, because I just know how much better I am when I rest. So, and then as far as getting the same feedback, like I'm really proud of like what I did build in the 20 months that I took off. Awesome. We made some really good changes. And I just think that as a pro, like you kind of just have to take time to find your look, and it might and it's going to be totally different than what they expect to see on the national stage. So I'm kind of just like looking at things like, okay, I'm a beginner, I still have a good foundation, and they just want to see a few tweaks, and it still might take time. Like, you know, some of the people who have been Olympians, like they've been doing this for probably even longer than the 6 years that I have, if you can even call it 6 years, probably more, 4 that I've been 5 maybe, you know, that I've been full-time competing as well. So I don't know, I just, you know, it can be a little disheartening to be like, okay, well, I did all this hard work and you didn't even notice, you know, like,
Yeah.
let me show you my side by side, tell me I'm great, you know, because, but that's not what they're going to do. Obviously, like they do need to get bigger. They could, you know, compared to first call outs, like there is room for improvement, and I'm excited. Like it's, you know, I'm human. It's disheartening to be like, oh, okay, here we go again, back to like still growing my glutes, but that could just be, maybe it's not a matter of growing them, maybe it's just a matter of coming a little bit tighter and then filling out sooner, which is kind of going to be our next approach for this show. So hopefully, you know, this look will be a little bit better and we'll get some better feedback, and you know, I just know it's going to take time, and I'm ready to put in the time, which is okay. So
Yes.
I'm not too heartbroken by my feedback. I was just excited to be like, here I am.
Yes.
See me, I'm a pro.
That's so
You know?
cool.
So yeah.
I think that's awesome. I feel like that's just a great experience to celebrate regardless of feedback. It's like, well, I showed up, made it happen, I brought my best, made those improvements. And I'm personally right now in a long improvement season. I need to grow. And sometimes
Love
that
it,
can,
yeah.
and I'm really excited to be like, I have no problem taking a long time off after having taken some time off before. It just feels good, like you said. And when you go through long seasons, it's like you need that, your body needs it. And appreciate you touching on that health aspect.
Yeah, I think it just reignites that fire again to like do it again, you know, because that flame can dwindle if you're in it for so long. So it's like blow it out, take some time off, and then relight it, and it's like bigger and stronger than ever.
So true. So true. And sometimes, you know, things get uncomfortable. You're taking that time off, you're growing. Yeah, you're feeling good. You're enjoying your life. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get on stage again, you know, sometime in the future. And you're like, I've been in this. It's going to happen
Yes,
again.
and I think it was lucky for me because it was like during COVID last year. So I was like, oh, well, it's an excuse to not have to get on or aim for 2020 at all. Very good timing on my end.
That was great timing. I, on the other hand, I prepped for so many months.
Yeah. Anyone who did prep last year, I'm just like, wow, I am like praised, because that was probably one of the hardest preps out there for competitors. Like, so impressed with anyone who stepped on stage last year.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure I'm saying thank you on behalf of others who've done that. I think it's awesome.
Yes.
And, you know, now it's a great time to grow and see what you guys are seeing in the division, of course. And I was hoping that you could talk to us a little bit about how you actually kept your mind going when you were doing your road to pro. You know, in 2019, you did 5 shows. How did you keep that in mind? How'd you keep that goal in mind?
Yeah, it was a long year. It was a hard prep because it was what my first national show was beginning of June. So then I had to stay basically, and then I hit 3 or 4 shows in between that and getting my pro card. So June, July, and August. So 3 months I was stage lean, which is a long time because it's a long time to get stage lean and then to stay stage lean and to make those changes that the judges are asking for. It's really hard on the body. Like looking back, I kind of like don't remember how I did it. It's like I blacked out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It was, yeah, because it was like my first show. I came in, I got 3rd place, and that was the best placement I had ever got in nationals. So I was so stoked. I was so happy. I was like, oh, they finally noticed me. Like I got first call and third is awesome. Like I was so happy. The next show going into Universe, I got 4th place. So I was like, okay, like they still see me, but I did worse. That's a little hard. Next show after that was at USA's in Vegas. And again, I got 4th place. That show, I kind of came in, I had some like emotional baggage. I was really tired, and you know, I just, my confidence wasn't there and I wasn't feeling great. And so then I got 4th again. I was super, super disheartened after that one. I was very upset. Like I was like ready to throw in the towel, and I'm just like, I don't know. I think my body's just tired. Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I'm doing worse, like, cause I got third and then fourth and then fourth. I'm like, I'm not getting any better. My coach is like, let's just try one more thing. Like, so he tells me, he said, there's a regional show in Portland and Sandy's going to be there. So it's not a regional show. It's not one that's going to get me any points or get me my pro card, but we decide to do it. And I go, and it's a regional show, and I end up getting second place. And I'm like, no, like, I'm a third place national competitor. Why am I getting second at a regional? I should be getting first. But, long story short, I ended up losing to a gal who ended up going pro at the Olympia like 2 weekends later, Marissa something. I can't remember her last name right now, but so I'm like, okay, looking back, like she also went pro. It's awesome that she beat me in a regional show. So anyway, at that one, I got some more feedback from Sandy. I was able to like show face and be like, hey, I'm here. I'm willing to like take your feedback because I'm going to come in hot to North Americans the next, I think it was just like a week or two after that. So, after being run down after like 4 shows, not winning, I'm just like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
So tired, like trying to just, because it's a sport of getting lean, but filling out. And when you do that back and forth, it takes a toll on the body. And it did for me. So I kind of was like, okay, like, I know my body is there. Like, it will show up for me. I put in the work. I think my mind just it's not showing up for me. So I actually, like, in the salon, there's a lot of salon talk. You get a lot of like referrals from people. And my coworker, she works with this energy girl, and she's like, you just need to go have a conversation with her, see if she can pull something out of you. And I'm like, okay, I will try anything, like at this moment. So I, this may be a little woo-woo for some people, but I'm a strong believer that it just kind of made a mental shift for me. So I went and saw her, and she's actually the one who like told me like, this matters, but it doesn't. Like, I can see that. And that just like those like 4 words like impacted me. It's like, oh, this doesn't matter. And it's like the minute that I let that go, it was like, oh, this weight is like off my shoulders. Like, it doesn't matter if I go pro because it's something I'm doing for myself, and it shouldn't be such a struggle. Like, I shouldn't be feeling like such a failure. And then her other thing that she said, as she's like reading me, she's so cute. She, and this is just a story. I don't know if it's actually true or if it actually worked or
it's
whatever.
Okay. I
maybe,
love it.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing it.
Yes. She's like, so I think she's like, tell me about your plants. And I'm like, okay, like I have like a few cactus, like succulents that I like have in my bedroom that I love. They're like my babies. If you know me, like you love cactus and succulents. Like, just, I live in the desert. They're my favorite plant. And so she's like, okay, well, they're speaking to me and they're telling me that, they've been watching you and your hard work this whole year, and they want to water you. Like, they want to give you like what you've been giving them. So she said, so fill up a cup of water, put it next to your plants, and let it sit there all day. And at the end of the day, I want you to drink the water and then refill it and put it back there. So I did this for a full week. Like, well, it's just water on a windowsill. Like, sure, whatever. But I think, I don't know if it was actually the plants that, gave me that boost of light, but I think it just kind of brought me back to like a way of believing in myself and just being that it's okay. Like, you're here, you're doing the best you can, you're doing everything. And coming back to what she said, it doesn't matter. So when I think back to like my pro show, the show that I went pro at North Americans, I just remember being so calm. I just showed up and I just had no stress. I was just like, whatever happens. Like, I'm here again and it doesn't matter. And I remember I step on stage and it was probably the slowest, most relaxed routine I have ever done in my life. And then all of a sudden we all come back on stage and they're doing first calls and I'm in the middle and I'm not moving. And I'm just like, okay, like, well, I've been in the top counts before and I thought I've gotten it, but I haven't. So we will get attached to this first call out. I might not get it. And then they finally, finals come along and the rest of the day, even I'm just like so relaxed. My husband's like, are you okay? Like, they're just not as emotional as you usually are. I'm like, I know. I'm like, but it's all okay. I just feel good, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's okay. And they ended up calling my name and like kind of like what I mentioned before. It's like they gave me my pro card. I won. I was in shock. Okay, stand backstage, take pictures. And then it was like the minute I saw my husband and coach and at backstage, I was like, oh my gosh, we did it. Like I don't even know what happened or how I did it because I was almost not there. But it's like the minute that you can just like step out of that expectation that you put on yourself, like, and just show up, like, is so much more. And it's like the judges just saw that. They saw that I was there. They saw that I looked great and I didn't have that emotional baggage that sometimes you can wear under your skin or in your physique, you know? So like let that go and just show up and have that fun and relax, because it's going to show on stage and it's going to work for you, which it did for me. And that is the story of going pro.
That's awesome. I love that story so much. And I think it's cool that you were able to release the attachment to the outcome and just allow yourself to have the experience. And then that ultimately let you show up as your best and accept, the outcome that you really wanted. And I love that. I think it's cool when you mentioned that part of being referred to the energy healer or worker was in your hair salon. And
Yeah.
I'd love if you could tell us more about your work as a full-time hairstylist and maybe how that impacts your energy or your meal timing, workouts, your schedule, all that jazz.
Yeah. So I've been doing hair for 10 years. Crazy. I feel old saying that in the double digits. I love it. I specialize in extensions, which is what I love it. It's like anyone and anyone can just cut their hair, but not everyone can like grow their hair in a day without extensions. So I feel like it's one of the most transformative, like feminine additions that women can add. Like nothing makes me feel more beautiful than having long, thick, luscious hair. So that's like something that I love giving women. Like I love just like, let me make you feel beautiful, like because you are, and we'll just enhance that. So, and then as far as like working and competing, like it is a very taxing job. You're on your feet all day, you're using your hands all day, you're talking all day. So it's not only physically draining, it can be very emotionally draining because a lot of people come in and say a lot of things and it can get heavy. And but that's something that I also love about the job. But when you're in prep, it can be kind of hard. I definitely kind of scale back when I am coming up close to a show because my energy isn't there, and I want to make sure that I'm still giving my clients all of my ability. So I tend to not overschedule or double book, and I start later in the day, typically around noon, so that I can like wake up and still have like my own time and get my training in and not feel rushed, because there's nothing worse than doing hair all day and then going to the gym after that because it's so exhausting. So I've kind of just learned that like if I can get it in early, the energy that I can put towards my training is going to be more important for my show, obviously, than after work. So I've kind of just over the years figured out what works best for me. And it's really fun with my clients. They've been in the journey of me competing for years as well. So they're like, I'll start leaning out and they're like, okay, when's your show? I can tell because you're just looking so thin. I'm like, and they're like, I just saw you 2 months ago and now you look like this. So, they get to see the whole process, and it's awesome to even have that support system because they're also excited and supportive and, ask questions. And I love sharing about it. And it's a way, I think, for me to also like have a conversation with women about, not only their hair, but about like food. Because I think most women struggle with knowing how to lose weight or knowing how to like be in control of their food. And if I can sit there for a few hours and talk to someone about macros or like how food actually affects you or what training does work better for you, like it's almost like my little window into the world of women and just, giving my sense of knowledge and what I've learned over the years with bodybuilding and macros and the empowerment that's come from that. So I love my job. It's so creative. It's a way for me to just be like, to just give, beauty to the world, whether it's just me like teaching someone or someone something, or, giving them beautiful hair and them leaving just feeling better about themselves. So it really is such a rewarding job. And I love all my clients, and I don't know what I would do if I didn't do hair.
That's so awesome. I think it's really special when you can share those connections and those experiences and be able to go on that journey with people. I was actually wondering too, like when you decided, okay, if you're already so busy doing hair and you're competing, or maybe sometimes, you're taking a long off season, when and why did you decide to start offering coaching, and how has that maybe informed your own experiences as an athlete?
Yeah, so I mean, coaching has just been something, I want to say it's more of just like a teaching thing that I love to do. It's always kind of been a little side thing. It's more something that I I like to do. If someone knows about it, it's not something that I want to sell or promote or be like, hey, use me. But it's just like, if you know me, you know that I'm just an open book, and I'm happy to like help you if you have questions, you know. So when I was in CrossFit, I want to say I was a fairly, top competitive athlete. And when, my coach there, the gym owner, he, would bring on some challenges within training, and he just asked me to, help coach them and guide them, because I did just have the experience of bodybuilding, and I love teaching people things. And if I learn something and I can share it with someone else, like that's, there's nothing more fulfilling than just like giving knowledge to people. So, and then I kind of moved on to another team that I worked with for a minute, just, coaching macros, and did a few shows. And now I've kind of scaled back a little bit. I don't, I kind of decided I don't want to sell nutrition. I don't want to sell the fad diets out there. I just don't want to be another one of those people, but because there's so many of them in the world. And I want to offer help if someone wants it, they know where to find me. And I want to focus more on hair, because it's something that I am good at and I love it. And I think coaching can be a little bit hard sometimes, because you have to take on a lot of your clients' emotions. And sometimes as a competitor myself, it can be hard to do both. So, having a good coach is so important. So if I know that I'm not going to be someone's best coach, then I'm going to tell them to be like, hey, maybe you should try someone else, because I can only offer so much, and it's a very small thing inside, more of a hobby that I love to do. And just because my philosophy is like, if I can teach someone to fish instead of just like giving them fish, and then like my work is done, like, and that's kind of how I think of macros. If I can teach someone how to eat and how food affects you, then you don't need a meal plan. You don't need a coach the rest of your life. But if you can just figure it out, like if I can teach you how to fish, then you'll be able to, I want to say diet, or just have a normal eating lifestyle forever, which is so important, I think, because no one's going to stay with a coach or diet forever, but if you can just learn the foundation of food, I think that could solve so many issues with people who have food issues, like, or struggle with not knowing how to lose weight or how to feel good, so that's kind of my philosophy and where I stand with like just sharing my knowledge with people.
I like that philosophy a lot. It's about helping people to understand their body and their food, and that they can do this and it doesn't have to be so hard. And the aspect of diet after diet after diet, it doesn't have to be the reality. It can really be much simpler than that. And you bring up a good point too about how it's an energy investment when you take on a coaching role. So I think it's awesome that you monitor that too. And we've talked about a lot of different stuff here on this show already.
We have.
I know. I'm like looking at my notes like, damn, we covered everything, like literally everything. There was only one other question I wanted to have, which it's random. It doesn't really flow with what we're talking about, but I might as well ask.
I love it. Throw it
just
at
like
me.
the last one, other than advice. But when you were growing up, it was in a household with 9 siblings. And I was wondering how you felt this maybe influenced your behavior, or what that's been like for you over the years, having so many siblings.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because in a family with so many children, there's only so much attention that one child can get, or you just have to like fight for it or create it yourself. So I think, in a family of 10, you're never going to be spoiled. You're never going to be handed anything, because we didn't have a lot of money, and my parents didn't have a lot of time or health energy to give us to like reach our full potential as a parent would who just has one child, so I love coming from a big family. I love all of my siblings. Like, I wouldn't give my childhood back for anything, even though it was hard. We were really poor, and I didn't grow up with the opportunity to go play sports or to travel or to, any type of money that would be invested. Like, I worked from like age 12. I always had a paper out, or I was doing something to make money to, just to like, because that's what you do in the big family. Like you go to work and you earn for yourself because your parents can't buy you anything. And they gave me they gave me love, they gave me life, they gave me my home, they gave me my siblings. They were great parents. But there's a lot of things that other parents offer their children that gives them better advantages. But it kind of taught me that you have to do the work if you want something. Not everything's going to be handed to you. Nothing will be handed to you usually. And if you can build that work ethic from a young age, like you'll be able to create any type of life. And I think that's kind of been instilled with me through competing almost. It's something that only I'm going to be in charge of this. Only I can reach this goal. No one's going to give it to me. No one's going to pay for this. Like you have to go after it, which is really empowering. Like if you can just like see what you're capable of, because it's a lot. And I think if most people just saw what they were capable of, like they would be blown away by what they could achieve, So,
Right.
and I think just like that big family aspect, like, it kept me driven. It taught me good work ethic. I mean, I think that's why I've been a hairstylist for so long and have my own business, because that's also something that you kind of have to like, it wasn't handed to me. My clients weren't handed to me. I had to work for it. I had to build it. And then also like with that many kids, there's a big sense of competitiveness. Like, oh, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm stronger than you. That's my shirt. Like, I'm better than you. Like, there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of like tension, which can create a healthy competition probably, or an unhealthy as well.
Yeah.
But mine was always pretty healthy. So I think when you have that many siblings, like, well, there's enough to have a team of 5-on-5. So sports are always super fun within the family. Like I just grew up always, having someone on my team or going against someone, which is like, I think it's just like good for a kid to learn that. It's like, it's good to have tough childhoods or get beat up, because it just teaches you that like, hey, life will also beat you up. So I might as well prepare you as a kid right now.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah,
Resiliency.
I think like my family and my childhood really impacted me, and just like really, and I think when I look back at it, like being on stage and being seen is kind of like my way of like, I don't want to say like asking for attention, but it's just like, hey, like see me, like even though I'm in a flood of like 30 girls on stage, like, and I grew up in a family of 10, like I've always kind of been that one person who's like, you will notice me and I will be here. Like I want to make a statement. I want to like put my foot down and be like, hey, like look at me. Not in like a like vain way, but it's like an impactful way of just like, I want to stand out because I want to do more with my life. I want to be something. And that's kind of always just, I think, been my driving motivator within this sport in a sense.
Wow. That's
So yeah.
amazing. I appreciate you sharing all that, because I I mean, that's amazing perspective is what I'm getting at, because I think some people, especially now, assume that how do I say this properly? Assume you don't have struggles, or that you're only privileged
Yeah.
if you look how we look. And I appreciate that you brought that to the table, because it's a good reminder that no matter where you're coming from or your background, you're going to face struggles. And I think it's interesting that you found that in growing up with lots of siblings, it encouraged and maybe influenced you to take on that I need to set myself apart mentality, and also
Yeah.
helped you to strive for more in your life. Like you had to work for what you've created. And I have a lot of respect for you for that. And I find it interesting too. And I actually was curious what number child you were.
So I am the ultimate middle child. I am the 6 of 10.
Wow.
So probably another reason why I'm like digging my way out to be like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. So fascinating.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
especially interested in that. It's cool.
yeah, I like what you said about just how everyone has a struggle and everyone's come from something. I think that's just a good reminder to look at everyone with that viewpoint. Like everyone has had something that sets them apart, or that has been a hardship, or whatever it is. Like whether
Mhm.
we see it, whether it was later in life or earlier in life, like I think it's just good to just have those eyes and just remember that we're all human. We all came from somewhere. We all make mistakes. We all say things that we regret. We all are just trying to just do our best, with whatever life handed us. And everyone's had a different hand. So learning and
True.
just remembering that everyone is the same is just
Oh
really
yeah.
important, and never putting people above you or people below you, because you're all in the same playing field when it comes down to it.
Yes. Oh, so beautifully said. And now, random question. Do you want to have as many kids as your parents had?
I don't actually. Like, I definitely want children. We're getting to that point in my life, especially living in Utah. There's a stigma about having children young or having a lot of children, but I'm one of two of my family who hasn't had children yet. And, I'm not in any rush. And I think when the time is right, we'll get there. And I also think having 10 children would ruin all of my hard work of bodybuilding. and I also think I love what I got from a big family, but I also think I want to give my children what my parents couldn't give me, in the sense of having a smaller family. And that's, something that I feel like would be important. And my kids will have plenty of cousins to feel like they have a big enough family. So I'm not too worried about that either.
So true. Oh my gosh, great point. I really like that. And thank you for telling that to us. And of course, I'm going to ask you now if you could give your best advice for girls who have never competed before but want to, and then your best advice for girls who are on their road to pro.
Okay. So girls who have never competed before, I would say just take your time. You're not going to look like the pros your very first time. Some people will, but not everybody will get there from A to B. Some people have to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G to get there, and or even just to qualify. And just know that, like, if you can get better every show, that's a win. Just remember the wins. And even if it's just for you and you didn't get a trophy for it, like, personal wins and growth from within is more valuable. And that's like the journey, and your journey is what's going to get you there. And once you're there, it's like all you have is the journey behind you to look back on. So make it a good one, make sure you don't regret it or anything like that. And girls going to trying to get their pro card, I would say, just learn to lose and to know that it's okay. Like, the sport for some people is about learning to lose. And that's okay. And failure will get you there eventually, and to just keep trying and don't give up. If you're right there, like, keep going. And if you need to reach out to me, like, I will hype you up, because I have been there. And, not all of us can be the people who step on our first national stage and go pro and then win a pro show, like, some of us have to work hard, and that's okay. Like, most people have to work hard. Like, stop looking at those like 1% people who just show up and are like, wow, you were born for this sport, because their journey is going to be different than yours. And that's okay. And that's normal. And we're all going to have different backgrounds. But just remember, like, even though you're not getting your pro card, like, you still have worth, you still have value. And there is, like, more to life than being a pro. Like, and that, maybe that's selfish of me to say, because I am a pro and I have made it, but there is just, like, more. And you can give yourself that, have permission to give yourself that for not getting that pro card immediately, and just keep working at it. Like, if you fail harder and get back up, because that's going to just, it's going to make calluses and make you stronger and harder. And eventually you will get there. And once you do, like, you'll look back on your whole journey and be like, wow, I did that. That was really freaking hard, but I did it. And no one else was there to hold my hand, or some people saw it, some people misinterpreted it, but it doesn't matter, because it's your journey and you did it. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's beautiful and fantastic advice. Seriously, just throughout this whole episode, and that piece of information there for both of those people, whether you're looking to compete or you are competing, I think that's really empowering and insightful. So thank you, Sharon, for sharing that. And I would love if you could let everybody know where they can connect with you, find you, and maybe then say, hey, I need you to hype me up.
Yeah, I mean, probably just mainly on Instagram is where I'm at. It's Sharon D Halpin _IFBB Pro. And yeah, I'm on there a lot. So just drop a DM, say hello. Like, I love talking with girls. I love giving advice, or just getting to know you. So reach out. I think, the more people that you can build your inner circle with, or just relationship with, like, the more we can help each other. And so I'm here, I'm available, and that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. I really love that you do that, and you're opening up the door for people to reach out and connect with you. And I'll make sure I put your Instagram handle in the show notes page. Of course, that's on celestial.fit/podcast. So if you guys are listening right when this episode goes live, all you got to do is go to celestial.fit/podcast. Sharon's episode will be at the very top of that page. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down to the category section and you'll find her name, and it'll have her links and all the show notes, the episode timestamps, everything will be there. By the way, we are on YouTube now. I haven't announced that yet, but it's on celestial_fit on YouTube. So there's clickable timestamps in the description usually, which is great if you're looking for, oh, when did she talk about this or that? And you'll always be able to find that there. So I want to thank you all for tuning in again. And Sharon, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Of course. No, it's my pleasure. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.